Mr. President, last week I joined several of my colleagues from the Senate and the House at the NATO summit in Ankara, Turkey. It was an historic meeting in terms of the future of NATO and the future of Ukraine and so many other issues that relate to that critical and important alliance. Last Wednesday, we had a dinner hosted by the U.S. Ambassador to Turkey, Tom Barak. There must have been 50 or 60 people there, all shared the concerns of the summit conference. Among them were members of Congress, Turkish leaders, and representatives of other countries around the world who'd come to that famous summit. At the heart of that dinner was my colleague and friend, Senator Lindsey Graham. When I arrived that night, it was no surprise that he had been there before me and had been working the crowd, speaking to each and every person who was there, business leader, political leader, from all parts of the world, about his concerns. Lindsey was walking them through, one at a time, his vision on how we could end the war in Ukraine and the legislation we needed to accomplish that. Typical of Lindsey Graham. We all shared that concern, but he was buzzing around that crowd like an aspiring candidate to convince everybody that there was a way to end this war the right way. Mr. President, only a few days after that dinner, my friend Lindsey Graham passed away. It was a shock. I would like to take a moment to recognize his lifetime of public service, both in the state of South Carolina and our nation. I served with Lindsey Graham in the Senate for more than 2 decades, and during that time, I counted him as a trusted friend. I will tell you, Mr. President, that my friends and supporters back in Illinois many times would just shake their head and say, "Durbin, what are you doing with Lindsey? You shouldn't be working with him." They didn't know how the Senate works, and they certainly didn't know him. Lindsey, for many years, was the only Republican willing to co-sponsor the DREAM Act, a bill that I introduced over 20 years ago and reintroduced in successive Congresses, providing protection to undocumented immigrants brought to this country as children. His support took guts. At a time when issues surrounding immigration were becoming politically toxic, Lindsey stuck his neck out for me and for these young people. I will never, ever forget it. I'll also never forget a meeting that Lindsey and I had with President Trump in his first term in 2018. It was a meeting to discuss a possible comprehensive immigration reform package. It didn't go well at all. President Trump made what I consider to be profane comments about some immigrants, and I won't repeat them here. Lindsey, sitting next to me in the Oval Office, passionately, vocally, and with real commitment, disagreed with the president, arguing that America is not defined by race or color, but by its ideals and many contributions that immigrants have made to our nation. He said to the president, as I sat right next to him in the Oval Office, "You're just wrong. These people that are immigrants make a difference in America. It's the story of our country," and Lindsey said it was the story of his family. Lindsey spoke publicly about this interaction after it occurred, and despite the scorn that he earned from certain segments of the Republican base, he stuck to what he believed was right. When I happened to become the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee for 4 years, Lindsey Graham was my ranking Republican, sitting right next to me every session of that committee. We had our share of disagreements on issues and nominees, but I knew that his word was always good. If he told me he was going to vote something for something or some person, he did. He delivered. And we had a good working relationship between us. No cheap shots, no stabs in the back. He voted in favor of 75% of the judicial nominations that we considered while I was chair. And there were 235 lifetime appointments that came out of that committee. Even though they were nominated by a president from a political party, he announced early on that if I expect Democrats to vote for Republican nominees, I have to support Democratic nominees to show the same spirit of cooperation. And he did. He kept his word. That was who Lindsey was. He was proud to be a fierce Republican partisan, but he never lost sight of the need to work across the aisle to make a difference in the lives of Americans. Loretta and I send our condolences to Lindsey's family and his legion of friends in South Carolina and around the world. He was an extraordinary member of the Senate. He helped to make it work. There was never any bipartisan meeting of a gang, or however you characterize it, that Lindsey wasn't in their ranks. I remember when John McCain and he led the Republican side in an immigration reform effort. I was part of that on the Democratic side. After months, literally months of negotiating, we brought a package to the floor which passed with an overwhelming bipartisan vote to show that we can do things like that, and we should still be able to. But for those things to occur, it's not just a matter of a good idea. You need good people who are willing to be respectful of one another and to work hard to find common ground. Lindsey was one of those people.